Right, everybody, tonight it's the big one. It's the Europa League final. Manchester United and Spurs are involved. 70,000 Manchester United and Spurs fans have already arrived in Bilbao for the Europa League final.
How many of them are getting in?
Not all of them.
Not all of them.
We can be confident of that. Just 14,000 tickets have been allocated to each team. Bilbao only has an estimated 13,000 hotel beds. So
a lot of top and tail in that.
Top and tail in, Andy.
There's a lot of protests about Airbnb out in Spain this week. So,
This is only going to make that
even
worse
worse
or better, depending on where you stand on the issue.
Maybe the Basque country are just going to go, do you know what? Up yours, rest of Spain. We're going to do it differently.
We're going to do it differently,
for the next couple of nights, we're going to absolutely rake it in.
The only possible remedy to this was Athletic getting in the final, because all the people who were coming to that wouldn't have needed hotel beds.
And now their town is just going to have, United and Spurs fans laying all over it tonight because there's nowhere to sleep.
They've only got themselves to blame, I would suggest.
Hard.
Yes, it is, yeah. I mean, that does happen, though, in these games, of course.
And maybe that's why Sir Jim has had everyone fly back the same night. Maybe Sir Jim is actually more practical and thoughtful than we've ever
What, you want to sleep on the streets, do you guys?
No.
We'll get you straight back. Sleep in your own bed.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a very compassionate man. Well, it's going to be an intriguing game, and one group of supporters will be devastated.
Yeah.
That we know, because the seasons in the Premier League have been so piss poor.
But even more so than a normal final.
Exactly.
That's the point,
I think
isn't it?
that's it. Because for Manchester United, of course, the chat is about getting into the Champions League and what a huge boost that would be for them, just generally speaking. To the point of football finance expert Kieran Maguire said tonight's game is financially the most important match in Man United's history. So it's a claim that you understand.
You need, is it?
Yeah, but you can understand that point of view. I mean, he's a finance expert, so we'll take his word for it. And then for Spurs to win a trophy, but a huge trophy as well.
Yeah.
And it's a marvellous opportunity.
Champions League qualification is a massive, massive thing there
as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And both teams last won a game in the league on the 6th of April. So they have really, obviously they've both been bad, but there's a clear sense that they've put all their eggs into this particular basket as well.
Exactly, Jim.
Who's bad?
Those Premier League games they've played in the meantime, it's not just the result. They've been a joke.
Yeah.
They've been a joke. Honestly,
The choice of team that they put out each time.
for like the fans who are actually paying to get in.
yeah.
I think it's sometimes overlooked. Of course, maybe you will say in retrospect, well, it doesn't matter if you win the trophy. But both of them have absolutely tapped out of the Premier League.
And we said that when particularly the Palace game when they were at Spurs. Palace have got the cup final to think about, right? And so you think, they might kind of just.
It was like playing AI Spurs.
Andy, it was
Yeah.
like we just
The
said,
AI Spurs experience.
respect those who have paid money. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Respect those who have turned up to watch it.
Surely, whatever your tactical plan is for the final, you practice it.
Yes.
I mean, it's not just like they weren't doing that, but if they were doing that, it wasn't very clear.
And
you're right,
momentum's so important as well, like at that stage in the season, isn't it?
You're right. And like Luis Enrique, for example, before he played the Champions League games against Arsenal, for example, he's like, right, lads, dress rehearsal. Won the league ages ago.
Exactly. But anyway, they're here now, and it's an interesting matchup, isn't it? Because Postecoglou has so much experience compared to Amorim. Now, Amorim's won a decent amount of cups in Portugal. I think he's won the Portuguese League Cup equivalent 3 times. Postecoglou won 3 cups at Celtic. So they're both managers with experience and relatively recent experience in finals. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this one plays out. Man United haven't actually beaten Spurs in ages. But as we've discussed many times on the show in the past month or so, United have won 2 trophies in the last season, and they do seem to turn up in these finals. So it's going to be a very, very interesting matchup. I mean, the league form would suggest it'd be a sort of topsy-turvy game with lots of goals and kind of possibly lots of mistakes and kind of end-to-end chaos. But that's not really what we've seen from either team, aside from that mad Lyon game in the Europa League. They've both been a lot more sensible.
They have, and I think when you talk about Man United winning 2 trophies in recent seasons, they've still got a few of those players knocking around. Now they were in a different moment, as we say, in a very different opponent. In particular with Manchester City, obviously in last season's FA Cup final. This one, like, how do you approach it? And because Spurs have been very sort of slow and steady in the Europa League. Just don't almost the opposite to their league form. Just keep it tight. Don't make any mistakes. You saw that against Eintracht Frankfurt, for example, 2-1 on aggregate. Whereas Manchester United have been little bit more chaotic, although I'm really thinking of the Lyon game. But they've been.
I mean, that's an exception, really, isn't it?
It is an exception, but they've still been scoring a few goals. You know, you think about how they played the tie away in Bilbao, for example. You know, when that first half, you know, under the cosh, but yet they managed to kind of go in 3-0 up. You know, incredible.
They do feel like they've United. I would say they've been more consistent, obviously, over the course of the competition, but it does feel as if they've been more beneficiaries of the incompetence of others,
possibly
than Spurs.
I mean, the Spurs have had a kind of draw, you might say.
Yeah, you could also argue that.
Yeah, I mean, but every Spurs fan I speak to, they all say, "Oh my God, I really don't fancy this," and I say, "Yeah, but you're playing Man United." Yeah. And every Man United fan I speak to, they go, "Oh, I don't really fancy it." I go, "Yeah, but you're playing Spurs." Like, do you know what I mean? It's an absolutely extraordinary encounter for all the wrong reasons.
The difference is that that kind of sense of nerves seems to be emanating from Man United itself as a club, whereas not so much with Spurs. Amorim's recent comments and the news that's coming out about how he's and it's really unhelpful timing of the news coming out that he's actually had to be sort of reassured by the powers that be at Man United that they're backing him and that he's the guy for the job, and that's
well, there was chat, wasn't there, that he was going to walk after a few months.
Yes.
He was umming and ahhing, thinking,
which has just come out now. Which is like, where's that come from on the eve of a cup final?
He's gone fully Shutter Island. He's just a patient at Old Trafford, and he thinks he's a manager.
Yeah,
I suppose
a lobotomy would help at this point.
When you talk about United backing Amorim, Jim, I guess the interesting thing is that without winning this, as going back into what Kieran Maguire was saying, they just might not be able to.
Yeah,
you know that they are really hamstrung if they don't get in the Champions League. Now, I guess if Spurs lost this final, it would be a miserable cap on a miserable season. But I don't think it would completely torpedo what they're doing.
No.
And I think there's an understanding that they will have to start again, go into next season. But I think almost the biggest problem, or one of the biggest problems at United is, and he's been criticised for saying it publicly, I think one of the only people who really recognises how bad it is Ruben Amorim. And whether you think he's the right coach for them, short or medium or even long term, I think there's a great deal of value in that. For him to be the one to come out, and obviously we know how Ange Postecoglou has dealt with the criticism not particularly well, but whereas Amorim has sat there and said, yeah, all the criticism you've given to me, I probably deserve more, and us winning this won't fix our terrible season.
It's reverse psychology.
I don't think it even is that. I just think it's a reality check. That's what it is.
But he's saying, "Oh, it's so bad, it's so bad." All the journalists have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
It's a bit like the old.
Or it invites them to pile on a bit more. It can go both ways.
Yeah, because like
I think it's Eminem in the final scene of. You know.
But he's got criticism for being too negative. But like, it's just typically Portuguese honesty.
Yeah, I think a fair assessment.
Hang on, Portuguese honesty. Mourinho bucks that trend, doesn't he?
Yeah, Mourinho's a unique man in human history.
As the years have gone by, certainly.
Right, okay.
Yes.
Jim,
I think a sort of a fair and measured assessment of both teams' season is that because it's been kind of so unprecedentedly bad for both of them, is that they're both project building, right? And that involves a bit of short-term pain because you lower the age of the squad and things aren't exactly what the manager wants, and that means things can be kind of clunky. And it has been unusually clunky, to be very generous to both of them. But I think that is an explanation for it, isn't it? It's not like they've just come out of nowhere. It's not like either team are really expected to be title challengers at the start of the season or anything.
Either way, can I just say this is one of the weirdest major club competition final previews that I've ever done.
It's a strange one,
because
isn't it?
I don't think we've said a positive thing about either team. So
I mean, we're at the point, you know, if United don't win this, that means they spend a second successive season out of the Champions League, and they have to pay Adidas a £10 million penalty. They have to pay their own kit
Right. That's why
for being so bad.
That's why Kieran Maguire is talking about the finances so important for Manchester United with it. I mean,
Like two mice fighting over a toilet, innit?
it is a bit.
They could fall in at any moment.
Yeah, I think with this though,
Best case scenario, they're on a toilet.
yeah, too much fighting over a toilet.
Well, I was trying to
Never
think
heard
of what would sort of, basically circling a drain, circling a toilet.
yeah.
What's going to fight? I don't know, microbes, salmonella. I don't fucking know.
I mean, it is your metaphor.
It is my metaphor. It's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
we'll go with that. It's
Okay,
like two
all right,
mice
fine.
fighting over a toilet.
Banksy would do it.
Get out there and claim.
Get out there and claim it.
You do that.
Yeah.
Can you do that on my the side of the building on my where I live.
Well, yeah.
Don't invite him to graffiti your house.
What am I doing? What
Yeah.
am I doing?
Why does it say grass on the door?
Isn't there a lot of around Nottinghamshire? I think people have started exposing brothels and just writing brothel
Oh right.
on the floor and pointing to it. Bit of that.
Oh dear.
Brothel.
Yeah, you found that very helpful.
Area sex worker in London. You in town.
Oh dear.
Right.
Back to the game, if I
Yeah.
may. But this, I do find it funny, this idea that some people are saying. I don't know how many people say this and how serious they are. But this idea is an absolute disgrace, and they shouldn't qualify for Champions League. Well, I mean, that's the competition.
rule, isn't it?
That is the rules. That kind of puts that. But
I mean, if we get to the point where every single season it's 2 Premier League teams
Yeah.
who are struggling in the league, there might be a point. But yeah,
yeah, but I mean, they're
It's
not
an
the
anomaly,
first sides that have been had an underwhelming campaign into a Europa League final. But as you said, Jim, it's been historically poor for them, and I think that's the point. Because when Eintracht Frankfurt won the Europa League, clearly they put everything into the Europa League. It wasn't
Same
as
with
bad.
Sevilla under Emery.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, there are sort of comparisons where,
And I think it feeds into the expectations.
Yeah.
Like, if you're having a great European campaign and a pretty average league campaign, it's much easier to sell that if you're Eintracht Frankfurt or Sevilla. If you're Spurs or Man United,
yes.
you know, you're one of the richest clubs in the world.
Yeah.
Would you worry for Ange a little bit in terms of the press conference after the game? And the kind of thing what he'll come out with. Because
I've worried a lot for him anyway.
I think,
I mean,
yeah.
it's just sad.
I mean,
He just seems really unhappy.
he's overtly pissed off, and I can understand why. Although, as you mentioned earlier, I don't think he's handled himself brilliantly.
No,
but it's very
no.
difficult, I suppose, to handle yourself well in those situations. I mean, one journalist had written a headline that said Ange was teetering between being a hero or a clown. And in response to a question from him, Postecoglou said, "I'll tell you one thing: irrespective of tomorrow, I'm not a clown and never will be."
I really like that. I have
Yeah.
to say, like
Yeah.
we complain about players and managers being media trained and like into the point of never actually saying anything. And I do understand that he has been very spiky at times where sometimes it hasn't felt called for. But he's got his right to reply there, isn't he?
He does.
He's not a clown. He's like, this is one of the weird things about football, isn't it? We see it all the time. We're guilty of it on this show as well. It's just the nature of it. You get people like Nathan Jones, just pick him out of the ether, who does seem ridiculous and clownish, but has achieved more in his life than any of us have if you put all of our lives together. It is one of the strange things about the spotlight of football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Jim's starting to sound like a bit of a clown, Andy. But I think people wouldn't write like mucky headlines like that if they weren't faced with someone who might punch him on the nose. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, firstly, we have to say that journalists do not write the headlines.
right.
Yeah.
The sub-editor does
So
that.
it does.
Although
Sorry.
in response
Quite right,
to when you compare achievements and all that kind of stuff, as the late great Brian Glanville said to, was it Don Revy, when he said, "Well, what have you ever done with your life?" And he said, "Don, you don't need to be a murderer to play Hamlet." But I get the point what you're saying, Jim. Absolutely, yeah. But Jim, you and I will of course be recording Ramble React straight after the full-time whistle. So make sure you join us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts for that.
Could be a real test of my maturity, this, couldn't it? Come on.
I hope Spurs win, just to put you on the back foot. Perhaps this bodes well for Manchester United, though. Have you seen that French genealogy experts have discovered that Pope Leo XIV is a distant cousin of Eric Cantona?
Yes, I have seen this. The Chicago Pope.
That's right, yeah. The study traced the Pope's roots back to France after discovering his paternal grandfather was born in Italy and emigrated to the United States. And the study managed to map out Leo's lineage all the way back to 1415 and discovered the two are linked from the 12th to the 15th generation.
It's
Not
quite
so
something.
shabby.
But I think what has actually got missed in this as well is that they also discovered that Cantona is a cousin of Albert Camus,
Yeah.
the French philosopher and author.
Yeah.
So
that doesn't surprise me.
suddenly twice as French, and he's already Eric Cantona.
Can you imagine like the Pope? Because the Pope obviously famously plays a bit of Wordle here and there,
Right.
which is a bit of fun. Can you imagine him open the laptop and going and just getting constant emails from ancestry.co.uk saying,
Yeah.
"Cousin Eric wants you to play some of his music at mass. Can you play some music? Can you get my music out there, please?"
Yeah.
Oh God, Cousin Eric. I get so many messages from ancestry.co.uk.
Really?
Third cousins, fourth cousins, fifth cousins.
Yeah. I don't get any.
Yeah.
I suppose
Have you submitted your DNA to the system?
That'll be why.
That'll be why.
I think you're quite a high value long lost cousin. Though, aren't you?
Yes.
Right, do you reckon?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
You got an interesting job.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, I can see that.
Yeah. Well, hey, there we are. If you're a cousin of Pete's, get in touch.
Get in touch.
Show at footballramble.com.
Yeah, no. Can you put the show email address on your ancestry.com?
Yeah. See what you actually get. Yeah, just let's chat. Let's reminisce.
Next live show, everybody up on the stage, and we'll decide
Yes.
which one looks like Pete. Oh, they all do. That'd be good. We could sort of have a bit of a Jerry Springer kind of.
Well, you could surprise me with it. You know, like that bloke who rescued all those people during the Holocaust. Like, I'd be on stage and then you go, "These are all your cousins." I go, "Whoa!"
Yeah, very different
I got
vibe.
loads-
very different vibe to what you just described.
But there will still be tears.
There will still be tears.
Yeah.
That'd be a very different vibe if you did that at the Vatican.
Yes.
I
Good
should
point,
say
actually.
so, Andy. I should say so. Now, Peter, last
Yes.
night, Manchester City beat Bournemouth 3-1. They zoomed up to third in the Premier League table ahead of that final game of the season where everyone's back involved. and they're looking good for it. A point should be enough to ensure a return to the Champions League.
Yeah, is Pep Guardiola just really jonesing for this Club World Cup? Is that what he is aiming
Maybe.
for? Because he's not won this one. So
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah.
He is that sort of guy, isn't he? Where he's going to want to collect all of them.
it may have just been a bit of sleight of hand that he just didn't actually want the Premier League or the Champions League. He wants the Club World Cup.
Sleight of hand.
Maybe he was actually trying to get into the Europa League.
Yes, to win that as well. Yeah.
Oh, I
he's
thought
got it all wrong.
you were suggesting he might have been rotating the players over the Premier League season.
Yeah.
In order to and
To be
saying,
fresh.
fellas, rotate your efforts.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean Rodri's back. Oh, he's got all of his. He might not have Kevin De Bruyne, obviously, because he's sad inside. He doesn't want to play. But he's
Is that the opposite to Palace?
He's almost full
I'm
strength.
feeling sad inside me.
He's God of strife, toil, and famine. Is Kevin De Bruyne?
I love the idea of the sleight of hand. You all thought we were a weaker opponent. Well, have some of this.
But I do just love that as an idea, though. I mean, that definitely would appeal to Guardiola. Like Real Madrid are so desperate to win the first Club World Cup.
Yeah.
Guardiola sitting there going, "I would love to deny them that."
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think of it in that way,
Yeah.
Andy.
We've
To
done
be
the
honest
long
with you,
game.
I've barely thought of it at all.
You
But
know
I'm
what
honest.
is very interesting about the Club World Cup as well, and obviously we don't know how much Rodri will play in it, but he clearly is available because he came on yesterday. If he plays a sort of major part, we'll get a good idea of quite how much they missed him, right?
Yes.
It'll be an interesting little side-by-side comparison.
Absolutely embarrassing that a team like Manchester City have to sort of pin all their hopes on one footballer, don't it?
And it's a weird thing because if you think of some of the players who, the last player who they've really had to hang all their hopes on is Sergio Aguero.
Mm.
Right at the beginning of that era,
yeah.
really, going back like
Yeah.
15 years.
I do think though with Rodri, he's arguably the best player in the world, and anyone would miss him. So
Do
it's
you-
a bit different. Isn't
Do
it, I
you
think?
think if Manchester City beat them in the Club World Cup, there'll be some sort of like private bet? Because we know how footballers love a private bet.
Mm.
Do you reckon?
Name names, Andy.
Well, Usman Dembele's one, isn't he?
And he has.
Very, very tastelessly.
Uh-huh.
He said, "Yeah, I have got past the point now, goals-wise, where all my friends have to buy me a ridiculously expensive watch." It's like, relatable
see.
story.
I
Thanks for
see.
telling us that. That's nice.
The kind of bet that can't get us in trouble if we name them.
Yeah, it should.
Yeah.
That's the sort of bet that should remain secret.
I see.
I think it's fair to say. But I just wonder
Dog fighting.
if Manchester City.
I want to gamble on dog fighting, please.
If City were to beat Real Madrid in the Club World Cup, do you reckon Vinicius should have to represent Rodri with the Ballon d'Or
Yes.
trophy?
Ooh.
You
That
should
might be-
actually
that
hand
might
it
be fun.
over. Hand over your
Yeah.
ill-gotten gains.
Geese it here.
Gives it here.
Kevin De Bruyne, that was his last game at the head-to-head. For Man City, he could
Yeah.
turn up there with another
might.
side.
Yeah.
And he'll be.
I'd love to see it.
He will be 10 years at the club, and he will be remembered for missing that sitter. Do you know what? I like that he missed it because it's more of a marker.
Yeah.
It certainly sums up the last couple of years of his life at Man City, isn't it, really?
All right, go
Well,
on
I'm
then.
just saying.
Last couple of years.
Not with success, just his general demeanour.
You-
He's Hyde the Payne Harold at the moment.
Is he really?
Yeah. He's just not having a good time.
So that was
Sorry, who is Hide the Pain Harold?
He's that old man. He's that old man from like Romania he's like a meme, isn't he? And he's always just looking like, I'm having a terrible time.
Oh, that guy with a funny mouth.
Yeah, he's got a sad, happy face.
Okay,
But Kevin De Bruyne is just,
So
even
are
in his
you-
good times, he's having a bad time.
Are you picking on KDB because he's prone to get a very red face during exercise?
Yeah, well, yeah, yes, sometimes. And he's never looked more handsome, but he's still fucking miserable with his life and his lot. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not what he says, we should say.
No.
But maybe his resting face is not a happy one.
No.
But my goodness, the last 10 years. What a player. What a player.
What a
I mean,
footballer.
I would say he's had more of an influence at Man City than Lauren Robert had at Newcastle.
That is
equally-
outrageous to say that in the presence of Pete Donaldson.
very much a rising tide.
I mean-
Let's see him in his pants and judge, shall we?
True. And we were denied that, which was quite cruel, I felt. But both loved a long ranger. But the last 10 years, Kevin De Bruyne has been, I mean...
One of the great players in the Premier League era.
Yeah, one of the great players in the world.
Absolutely.
I don't think you need to... I understand why you've said that. But I mean, at times I sometimes think, and I know this is going to be a bit silly, but is he a touch underrated, maybe?
I think so, yeah.
Because he really... Such a phenomenal player, Andy. The passing range, the influence he's had on the team, the goals he scored, assists, all the rest of it.
And how he's evolved over the time that he's been there as well.
Yeah.
Because what he worked best at is when he arrived, he was perfect for the Premier League because he was a playmaker who was really quick as well. And how he's developed that game, as Pete has said, he had various physical limitations as time has gone by. And, you get to a point, it's like, you can't keep putting your body through it in the Premier League, even though it wasn't his choice. I think it's probably the best thing for him. But I think what's the interesting thing is when you look at all the other players who've been linked with replacing him, Florian Wirtz obviously being one of them up until fairly recently, you think, I love all those players. Those are disgustingly gaudy, typical City signings. But on the other hand, none of them will replace him.
Do you think
None of them, because no one can do exactly what he does. So I totally agree with Pete's point about he hasn't looked like he's capable of getting through the entire season for the last couple of seasons. But having said that, replacing him is trying to find a like for like is really, really difficult.
It's kind of pointless, isn't it?
Yes.
You don't want to hide into nothing.
You'll have to find a way to play differently.
Yeah.
Like Fulham did when Polina went and Sanderberger came.
Very similar.
That's
There we go.
absolutely
Very,
Seb.
There we go.
Yeah.
But do you think with De Bruyne, though, that I think he'll probably sit among the sort of Paul Scholes, Frank Lampard bracket of
with
the great players.
Gerrard as well, maybe.
Yeah, rather than that, then you're going up to, I don't know, dare I suggest the likes of Kaká and maybe even you then you go on to the true greats of Zidane and so on.
It's possibly because of the team he's in, but it's very rare that you look at a creative player like that and think of them as someone who dominates your team. But that's exactly what Kevin De Bruyne has been doing for a decade, which is incredible.
It is, and I think as well with Guardiola's system, we often sort of think it's very, very system based, and some people, at times could say it's kind of so good it's predictable and therefore a bit boring. But with De Bruyne, within that system, he had the individual quality with the long range efforts and those sweeping sort of Beckham-esque type sort of passes.
He's got the ability to short the system.
Exactly.
To step out of the system and produce a match-winning moment that's not part of that as well.
And it makes Man City way more watchable for it as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, to be fair, though, going back to the game, it's what Omar Mamouche did.
Oh,
A little tribute to him.
That's it. There you go. That's exactly what.
I mean, that was incredible. I can't think of a long-range shot like that apart from Cristiano Ronaldo against Porto in the Champions League.
Which was that. I mean, that I'm getting sidetracked. That Ronaldo goal was like 40 yards out.
Yeah.
That's one of the best strikes. I've ever
Mamouche,
seen.
I know that the ball turner stepped off a little bit and he had time to sort of hit it, but my God,
the technique, isn't it?
In any other season, that's goal of the season.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think
what?
you can talk about bad defending for that because it's literally go on then, have a go from there.
Yeah. Oh, he has.
I
Straight in off the post. Lovely.
I don't think it's just recency bias, but I think when the goal of the season, collection is totted up, I think that and Jared Bowen's from the weekend.
I love Jared Bowen.
What a goal!
Jared Bowen's was like such a pleasing one.
He had enough time though, didn't he?
Oh, it's still a really difficult thing to
But Mamouche
execute.
is like the dip on that goal.
Well,
Wow.
Zidane had time in the Champions League final that time, did he not?
Yeah, but you're right. The dip was great.
Yeah, it was an absolute
Man.
beauty.
Knuckle.
Yeah, it was.
It was like he was trying to sort of, write out a letter with a curve of the ball.
Luckily put, yeah. And that was the first of three, of course. We had a couple of sendings off in the game.
We did. I thought the Dogzo on Kovacic was actually a bit harsh. Because it's so far away from the goal.
Long way.
And there's two Man City players covering.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but he was in, like, as in the defender had work to do, so wasn't covering completely. That the striker, if it's a good touch, then you're in.
Are we back into the
You can't do it on the ability of the player.
Yeah,
Are we level that? Is there a little bit of levelling up from the weekend?
Yeah, and a bit of, well, we've all seen the way City have defended this
Yeah, I would have
season.
fancied, was it Evan Nielsen who he pulled down? I would have fancied him to go in, you know.
I don't think it was a clear-cut chance.
So do you not think it was a red card?
I think it's harsh.
It's just so far out, and there's two City defenders who've got a long distance in which to catch up with him.
Are you being reminded of a certain someone dragging down a Bournemouth player far out?
I am, yeah.
Was that Gabriel, was it?
It was William Saliba.
Oh, Saliba.
But again, it's like, it's the referee's discretion in that particular.
Yes.
It's
not going to get overturned,
isn't it?
really, just
No, you wouldn't think so.
No.
But it's just a long way out.
It was a long way out.
And
What
it wasn't central either.
do you think of Lewis Cook's red card?
Yeah. That one's a bit clearer.
A little bit clearer.
You could say.
It wasn't like nasty, but it was,
Just one
studsy
nasty.
shinsy.
Is that what Cook said? It wasn't nasty.
It wasn't nasty, it was studsy shinsy.
What a defence. Man City, I mean, surely now. I say surely they do have to go to the cottage, of course, on the final day, which, is not an easy place to go.
No.
But you would imagine.
But it's a pleasant place to go.
It's a pleasant place for all, Andy, you have to say.
This pool is not an easy place to swim in.
No, certainly not beat. I mean, looking at it, yes. I mean, it could work out. It's unlikely. Man City need a point really to be sure. Newcastle playing at home to Everton. We all think Newcastle will win that one. Villa away to Manchester United. Just give them the points now, Andy. Will they be even back from Bilbao in time? Whatever the result tonight.
I mean, it's
Chelsea
funny.
Forest is the one you're looking at.
Yeah. That is the one. But it doesn't, to me, feel as if Forest have that much left in the tank, even though they did chisel out that winner.
Sure. So you think Man City are probably safe?
Yeah.
Almost certainly.
Yeah. Likely.
Yeah. Very, very likely indeed. Last night, Crystal Palace beat Wolverhampton Wanderers 4-2. And Palace secured a record points tally in the Premier League. They're on 52 points.
I have to say, as far as victory laps go, this was a very, very stylish victory lap.
It really was.
You have a bit of Joel Ward,
Nice.
leave Eze and Mateta on the bench, and Eze comes on and scores a goal at the
Went
end.
a goal down as well.
Yeah, then
Eddie
Ward comes out with the FA Cup. Eddie Nketiah. Oh, yeah. We've got Eddie Nketiah.
Yeah, a beautiful evening for Crystal Palace. Even Ben
Embarrassment
Chilwell
riches.
scored.
Yeah, that Munoz, we've been absolutely frothing over Munoz for the last few weeks, but that sort of improvised scissor kick to pass to Sarr.
The pre-assist.
The pre-assist, yes. The pre-assist.
Beauty.
That football.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I could watch it.
That's a player who is like, I'm enjoying my football. I'm
Yeah.
on top of my game, and I can do things like this.
Can we loan him to a club that's in the Club World Cup, please, so I can watch him more of him?
Oh yeah, that would be romantic, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
At the weekend, Andy called him the socially acceptable Danny Alves.
I think that's fair. Yeah, fine.
Yeah. I was I was on the radio on the weekend, and I was like, he reminds me of Cafu. Cafu. I think that's fine, isn't it? I don't have to kind of put any caveats there.
Caveats there.
Yeah, totally.
Until they're dead, you can't know.
Right.
You can never know.
Yeah, lovely though for Eddie Nketiah, Jim Campbell.
Yeah, absolutely.
He won his second FA Cup on the
He
weekend.
did win his
of
second
course,
FA Cup at
lest
the
we
weekend.
forget.
Lest we forget.
And among the goals here.
Yeah, and first one was lovely, but it was very, very Eddie Nketiah in that he took an absolute A in sort of setting himself,
Think about it,
striking
yeah.
it. Keeper still got a hand to it, but they all count. Delighted for him, really. It'd be interesting to see what happens now in the summer, won't it? Now that Palace have obviously got not just the momentum of the FA Cup, but obviously a Europa League campaign. It makes you look around that
staff
squad
up
and
for.
think maybe they'll keep a lot of them together.
Yeah.
Vardy to
there
Palace,
won't be
that's
this
the
sort of-
rumour.
Is that
Vardy to
real?
Palace. I don't know why they'd take him, but that's a rumour.
Yeah, you've got a very settled squad, a bunch of fine Christian men.
Yeah.
Why
The devil is arriving.
Exactly. Why are you going to
Maybe that's it, it's a test.
The manager says a new devil is arriving.
And because he's under 6 foot, he could literally sit on your shoulder.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. Never thought of it like that, Andy.
Yeah.
I've never sat on anybody's shoulder, but maybe I should give it a try.
Yeah.
Joel Ward, as you mentioned, Andy, got a good send off from the Palace fans. That was his last game for Palace at Selhurst Park because he could return with another side, but he's been there for 13 years. What a servant, Andy Brassel.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. And I think for Palace to have that evening of like proper celebration.
Lovely.
I'm glad
lovely.
that the fixtures turned out like this, you know. I think
Perfect.
It was just fantastic.
Absolutely perfect.
And a hot day. Oh,
Lovely warm evening.
love it.
Would you call it balmy?
It was balmy. It was balmy.
Yeah, he gave a lovely little send-off speech to everybody, and then also post the final at Wembley as well. Just it's fun. It's lovely when a player like that gets their flowers.
Yes.
Because it's Joe Ward. I don't often think of him. You know, I knew he was at Palace. Of course, he's not played that much this season, but to get that proper send-off, as we say, and to get a medal,
13 years there as
to
well.
get that FA Cup.
Yeah,
You're right. I
what
think
a full stop.
the thing really, as you said, Marcus, was where Oliver Glasner stepped aside to allow him the last few words in the Wembley dressing room.
Yeah, and he said actually that. So, you know, when I joined and the players that have come before you guys, you know, we reached our ceiling, if you like. And he said, but our ceiling is your floor.
Yeah.
Looking around that
Yeah,
dressing
that was
room.
really nice.
I thought it was a lovely way of putting it, actually, and very humble too. And it is, you know, inevitably chat turns to, you know, can Palace sort of keep certain players and all the rest of it. But I think, for me, the outside looking in, to me, they've just got that right type of player because I don't know how many of like the top clubs wanting to have a tilt at the Premier League would be interested in, say, Jean-Philippe Mateta. I think he could add value.
I think you're right.
But you know what I mean?
No, you're right.
They're in that sweet spot.
It's kind of like if you're trying to win the county championship in cricket,
Right.
you want players who are not quite good enough to play for England because then they'll get nicked for the entire summer.
But you want quality players. Though.
Yeah, exactly. So if you had like England A players, for example, that puts you in a good position to win the county championship. But I think the interesting thing here is I agree with you, not just about Mateta, who I think is like obviously he's been brilliant over the last year and a half, but I think he's quite a difficult sell to an elite club. And I wonder,
we are talking elite, by the way.
I wonder even if Ebieze falls into that. Actually, because it's funny when Manchester City are hunting for De Bruyne replacements.
Yeah,
he's not been heavily mentioned, has he?
Well, I mean, we on Wednesday I was thinking that if I was an Arsenal fan, you know, I think that if they do have the hundreds of millions or whatever it is to spend, that some people said, goodness knows, to get like, you know, would they have a look at Eze? I'd love Eze to stay at Palace, but he's the one, isn't he? Really, because obviously Elise previous season and off he goes to Bayern and whatnot. Adam Wharton may be a player, but I just think if you're Glasner and you're the board, you would just stress to them, guys, like the relationship you have with the fans, what you have, like just drink this in for another couple of years or something.
Just enjoy for a couple of seasons.
Yeah, totally.
I think just try and sell Europe next season.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think when you spoke about the religious factor as well and the togetherness in the squad in there, outside interest is so important as well. And because usually at that level, you're talking a kind of Newcastle United, Ben Arfa, kind of quite rabbly players. Do you know what I mean? They're quite you know, that can sometimes upset the apple cart. You know, go on strike, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But this team are just playing for each other, and they're really focused on one goal. And I like you said, I just hope that they keep the squad together because they're an inspiration. They really are.
And also Palace players, if you're listening, look who's going to win the Europa League this year. You got next year. It's yours. All right. Genuinely though, it's like
it's a completely different prospect now.
It absolutely is. You know, we talk about the Europa Conference League being up for grabs for any Premier League side in there, just because of the nature of what's happened this year in the Europa League. You know,
just look at the back end of this year's Europa League.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's open.
It is open. All right then. Coming up after this, Jonjo Shelvey bids farewell, and Ian Rush has written a musical in a way.
Well, I'm talking about the sort of luxuriant quality.
Oh,
welcome back to the Football Ramble, everybody. What were you talking about there?
In
Andy?
the shower.
Coat?
I think it was. Was it
Jules's coat?
Yeah.
Oh, that was on BT Sport.
Mink? Was it mink?
Was Jules wearing a mink coat on the television?
Andy,
right.
I just wore it. I didn't smell it, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. We should say that no animals were harmed in the making of that coat, despite your requests.
And even if they were, it wasn't my.
He's got a deceased hamster in each pocket.
He's got the smell of death.
He shoved a guinea pig in the boot of his car and trousers.
Really?
There's no tail on this coat, and I must protest.
Oh dear. Right. Let's turn to something rather bizarre. It appears that Liverpool legend Ian Rush has put his name to an AI musical called Rush for Justice. It's a good title.
Yeah.
Good time. Well, what is it about? You cry. The musical is about a legal battle against a Surrey scaffolding company and a small law firm in Wigan.
Yeah.
It also
the greatest story ever told.
Yeah. Tale as old as time. It also attacks Robbie Fowler and Jamie Carragher. The musical starts with a rant about the media, including The Athletic, the FSA, and lots of journalists. And the entire musical is in the style of Hamilton. So here's a clip.
Why fight the facts? Why bend the code when Heron Fisher's findings are clearly showed in filings, in letters, in companies' house?
We're still here, everybody. Don't worry.
Claim it's a battle? This isn't a joust. I saw the books, I saw the lease, I saw directors fighting for their peace. From Coot and Enders by to scaffolding claims, this company bled under phantom gains.
No such agreement, that's what we wrote in letters dated with every note.
For our own legal purposes, we do not stand by any of that. We are reproducing that simply because it needs to be heard. It needs to be. I mean,
So what is it all about, Peter?
Ian Rush has got some kind of problem with a scaffolding firm and a couple of legal counsel that he's either been represented by or had some problems or run-ins with in the past, and he's created an abhorrent AI musical that runs to an hour and a half long.
Yeah. Has it given you any ideas?
Well, it's giving me ideas that we should close the internet. Yeah, I mean,
right.
I mean, I love all.
So this is your limit?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
the
no.
things I've shown you off Reddit.
This is like that is a point in the journey to the singularity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pete Donaldson's had enough of the internet.
I've had enough. Yeah, I mean, it's very much like I love older people getting involved in AI slop. I love it. I love those shitty videos of men cleaning barnacles off whales that didn't happen on Facebook. I love people rescuing leopards that didn't happen on AI, and people going, "This is amazing. They're doing an amazing job." And I just love people getting hoodwinked by shit AI. But he would have had to spend. I mean, it's really easy to create anything like that. I mean, it's a lot of old toss. You just put a prompt in, and they create an hour and a half of just nonsense. But they've used a pretty good model. He will have spent at least 50 quid on the credits to make it because it is long. It's a long old listen. I don't think anybody in the world apart from Ian Rush will have listened to it. But I wonder what the prompts were. I wonder how much of the court filings, I wonder how much he had to sort of get involved about his own chagrin and get it into the AI prompt to make this horrible stuff.
I think, mate, clearly it's based on Hamilton.
Right.
But he's also, I think he's just put all of the court documents in it.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things that he's annoyed about in there though, because you can't, if you just put the court documents in, they've clearly not found in his favour. So it wouldn't be a pro Ian Rush musical, would it? I suppose.
Having listened to a bit of it, obviously I'm not going to listen to 90 minutes of it because I haven't got time, and I have loads of free time, and even I'm not going to go into that. As you say, it's proper AI slop. So much of it sounds like it's directly taken from like court statements and minutes from hearings in court. Yeah. There are some of the lines in it. There's one about Jamie Carragher and Robbie Fowler not calling him back after he asked him to make a video in support that says they never called old Rushy back. No mate to mate hello. There's clearly been no editing of it as well. It's just spat it out. And
is Ian Rush walking alone?
He is walking alone.
We finally found what could make a former Liverpool player walk alone.
Along some scaffolding.
Yeah.
Which is dangerous.
Do we reckon that there's a possibility that Ian Rush is tied up and gagged in his house, sort of like Willard White in Diamonds Are Forever?
It's very possible.
I sincerely hope not, Andy.
I think the sad truth behind this is that he's hired an American firm to help with all of the various kind of legal wranglings that are kind of impossible to fathom from this, but are obviously affecting him quite badly. And this looks to me like they've gone, this is obviously going to get loads of attention because it's completely ridiculous, and then maybe that will bring sort of wider attention to the case and put a bit more pressure on it. But they don't seem to mind making him look ridiculous.
Yeah. There's a chance for that because there was a premiere for this musical, we're calling it, at a rental property in Cannes.
Oh, you're at the Cannes Film Festival. we're in Cannes, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's taking place right now, of course, the festival. It seems like, as you say, there is a plan to create a film to go with the soundtrack. So
Surely that can't be true.
get it in
It's
there.
an OBE. He's like the most decorated strikers in Europe. Oh, God.
There's a huge AI blind spot, isn't there?
Well, it's
Liverpool's top goal scorer, 81, 82, 83, 85, 86,
Yep.
90, 90, 92, 93. I mean, my God.
Yeah.
It's quite in character though, because he was a tireless presser as a player.
Yes, exactly.
Well, rush for justice.
God.
You know, give it a whirl.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, can I give you an update from the National League South? Go on. If you remember, the promotion was a hard-fought thing. That was very, very interesting after the top 6 sides were separated by just 3 points. Well, it is Boreham Wood who will join Truro City in the National League next season. They beat Maidstone 1-0 in the final to secure their place in the 5th tier. After the game, a Boreham Wood fan invaded the pitch, went over to the travelling Maidstone supporters and began taunting them. Maidstone fan wasn't having any of it. He sprinted onto the pitch and two-footed the fan.
And he really cleaned him out.
Did you?
Really, really good.
Just don't. We don't condone violence, but don't taunt other supporters like that, you silly boy. Yes, staying with the National League South, though. Torquay United have appointed a new supporter liaison officer. That's good news, isn't it?
Yes.
Why on earth are you telling us that? I hear you cry.
Why on
Well,
earth are you telling us that?
the reason is his name's Paul Bastard.
Yes! Come on!
Paul Bastard.
Paul
I couldn't
Bastard.
believe my luck when I saw this. A friend of mine had said it to me. I was like, this can't be real. No.
No.
Change the
Paul
name.
Bastard.
Change it.
Change it.
No, wear it
It's
with
your
pride.
name. Wear your bastard with pride.
Also, Jim, I don't think you should say his name with that intonation, like Paul Bastard.
Yeah.
You can't help it. It's his name.
Paul Bastard.
Surely though, Torquay United should get Sean Bean involved in the hierarchy of the club. Where's the manager? I'll get him. Bastard!
But like, you know,
There's a
how,
Paul
how,
Bastard in
how
these dugouts.
all of our names sort of came about. You know, I'm
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
Donald's son.
Yes.
What did his dad do? I don't know. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well,
You know,
that's it.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, poor old bastard.
Well, I'm
But he's in
sure
there.
we'll hear about him in the same, giving it the weight of authority that it requires, just like our reviews of MLS and certain managers that are in there. You know, a little bit of dessert at the end of a ramble.
Maybe.
See what Bastard's up to.
We'll get.
Hey, Southender.
Do you think would TNT Sport apologise for that? If
Yeah,
he was
sorry
on
for
there?
the bad-
Sorry for the bad
sorry for the
language.
bastard.
But here's Paul Bastard. Oh, we've done it again.
Yeah.
We
It is just his name.
Yeah, that is. Would you not change it like the Rick Mail character to Bastard?
Yeah,
Paul
perhaps.
Bastard
Yeah.
would be
Maybe
quite
that's
good.
it.
Maybe. Yes. Before we go for a break, Jonjo Shelvey has officially left Burnley after a hugely successful season. Burnley have had, of course. Promoted back to the Premier League. Marvellous stuff.
Yeah,
Did he get a
Marcus gets
medal?
His little treats.
Um,
Marcus gets his little running order treats. Doesn't he?
Does playing 11 minutes get you a medal, Andy?
It means it's discretionary, to use one of Jim's earlier words.
Yeah, I don't think he's getting one, to be
Oh,
honest.
well-
When I did see him play on the 11 minutes or
Yeah,
whatever,
beautiful.
he looked absolutely crocked.
Yeah.
He's been playing football for a very, very long time.
Pete, while you're
Yes.
there, could maybe you do him a medal out of the 3D printer?
Yes, I'll print him out one.
Yeah.
It's hot off a 3D print press.
You should do that. Anyone who misses out on a medal,
Yeah.
you're the medal man.
Little tinfoil medal I've made you, Jonj. Are you taking the piss? Yeah, a little bit.
But not that.
Come
much.
see
But not
Pete
that
Bastard.
much.
I'll sort
Come
you out.
see Pete Bastard.
Do you want the medal or not?
You kind of forget that he left Liverpool at 21. Like,
Was it
he
21?
started at Charlton at 16. He was still
Blimey.
at school, I think, when Hardigan was debuting. He's been in the game a very long
He has.
time. Let the man rest.
Does he go back to Turkey then, Andy? Turkey, sorry.
Never should have left in the first place.
Never should have left.